introduce the.
Already recording started.
Noble, did you say you want me to start?
Yeah. You have to start. We'll start with ethics.
Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you, Noble. Thank you, ISOT, for inviting me for this, I would say, very contemporary and a very complicated topic. And I was asked to focus on the role of the transplant surgeon or the transplant professional. But I was given limited time, and Noble also suggested that I speak about donation ethics, which is a huge subject. So I have chosen, Noble, not to really get into any such detail, but to focus on the context of today's webinar, which is the whole issue of unrelated transplantation and the Authorization Committee from a slightly different angle, because I think the other speakers are going to address it from the legal angle, from the some of the procedural issues, etc. And I will completely stay away from that. I will just share my screen now, and okay. So first, you need to tell me whether you can see my slide.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I mean, I have used the term the transplant surgeon, but again, it means the transplant professional. However, when it comes to the act of transplantation, of course, the surgeon has a slightly elevated responsibility, because we are the individuals who are going to cut open the donor. We are going to inflict a surgical procedure on a otherwise healthy individual. So I think certainly the surgeon, if not more, has equal responsibility in this whole act. Now, I think the first concept that I would like to just share with you, and having been involved in this for many years, I have personally also gone through this kind of emotion. So I think as transplant professionals and as surgeons, we have, and especially in India, we have multiple loyalties. They pull us in various directions. So we have the loyalty to our patients, so it is the recipient. But of course, we have a responsibility and loyalty to the donor. Transplant surgery is our income. Those who are exclusive transplant surgeons. I was one of those who was involved in transplantation as a small part of my work. But those who are focused on transplant surgery, it is their income. And that's certainly a certain pull in a certain direction. There is, in India, we work, many of us work in the private sector, and we know that there are pressures. There are institutional pressures, there are pressures of volume. There is now a lot of competition, the way transplantation is growing and has grown in India. And therefore, there is that pressure, or that is that pull. And finally, we have something called peer pressure, which works both ways, but we are part of a larger community. And there is the transplantation community, the larger community of doctors, and that has a certain pressure. And I think whilst I just put this to say that when we discuss any such issue relate broadly, which can be brought under the umbrella term ethics, I think in the real world of our day-to-day work, we are faced with these kind of multiple loyalties, which we need to recognize. I think one of the questions which is fundamental to this whole discussion when we talk about our responsibility is that the organ trade, which is a global phenomenon, perhaps has its own form in India. Is this our burden? Should it be our burden? And what may be the reasons why we may have to share the burden? So first of all, it's a legal commitment, and this legal commitment comes from the Human Organs Transplant Act. And one of the points that we must immediately put on the table is that one of the reasons why this act was enacted was because there was a huge public controversy about what at that time was called uh, the kidney scandals, the kidney bazaar, etc. So this was a response of civil society, government, uh, to that unfortunate part of the history of transplantation in India. And I come from a city which was at the one of the centers for that. So we have the Human Organs Transplant Act, and of course, therefore, we have a legal commitment. But having said that, ethics is not law. So I mean, it's beyond, and therefore we can all have our views, and we all need to have our views. And therefore, whilst the law says something, and in a sense, we have to therefore follow it. But as a transplantation community, we can have our own views, and we should collectively have views. And I'll come back to that theme towards the end of the talk. But on the whole issue of the organ trade, and partly what part of the burden is ours. I also want to put on the table that globally, and also the Indian professional organizations, including the ISOT, have taken a very clear collective stand against any form of commerce and coercion in donation. We are all signatories to various global guidelines, and so also is the government of India. So clearly, we have a framework where we have collectively committed to this. But I think there is one lens which sometimes in this whole debate we may tend to sideline, which is that this is the lens of surgical professionalism. So if I am a transplant surgeon, if I am operating on a donor, what is my responsibility to the donor? Leave alone the authorization committee, leave alone the procedure, leave alone the law. So I think the willingness of the donor and the willingness of any patient for that matter whom we operate, what we call informed consent, is paramount. And that is something that is inbuilt to our relationship with the donor. And the reason I say this is because I have in the past been witness, or I've heard individuals saying that, look, that is what the donor is, where the donor comes from, what is the donor's thoughts on the donation surgery is for the committee to decide, is for somebody else to decide, which I think is from a professionalism viewpoint not acceptable, because we have to see every patient we operate on, and you don't want to be operating on an unwilling patient. The other lens, and this is, of course, something broader, and I have no intention of dwelling on this for too long, but I'm just putting a historical fact to you, and that doctors in general, including transplant professionals, have been agents have been social agents, and we go out to the community to request them to donate organs, disease donation. Therefore, we are connected to society. And therefore, our complicity or our participation or our ignoring the whole issue of the exploitation of the socially vulnerable, the injustice that may be being done to certain types of donors, doesn't fit into our role as social agents, and doesn't fit into our appeal to society to donate. So the two are incongruous. So I think the social contract that we have is something that we need to be reminded of. And finally, I just want to say that as the transplant professional, we are actually uniquely placed to stop any form of coercion and any form of organ trade, because we are the final arbitrators. And if we refuse to do a certain types of donor recipient pairs, largely speaking, I don't think it can happen. So clearly lobbing the ball to others is fine, but I think finally the buck tends to stop with us. Now, what can we do as transplant professionals and surgeons? Well, this is standard procedure. I used to follow this when I was involved as one of the surgeons in two programs in Mumbai. So you have a one-to-one with the donor. Anyway, you need to have a one-to-one as a surgeon. You can choose to give the opt-out option to the donor if you suspect coercion, if you suspect that money is exchanging. And by the way, in the Indian scenario, it may be worthwhile mentioning that money is coercion. So there is an overlap between coercion and money. But there is a way you can go out, and I distinctly remember two of our donors, and this was a liver program, so slightly different from kidney, but the parallels are there, where two women who were donors, who were wives, when we told them that they don't have to do it, and that we'll give them a medical reason, backed out. They took the medical reason. So clearly, we can have this last minute intervention. I think we should also study the recordings of the committee to get a sense of who the donor is. What can we do on other front? We can choose institutions to work which discourage unrelated transplant, if that is what we believe is the way to go. But finally, I want to say that this is also about professional autonomy. Whilst there can be an authorization committee which gives a paper called permission, there can be hospitals which are keen to go, there can be pressures of all sorts. But I think finally, our professional autonomy as autonomous surgeons or physicians involved in transplant is sacrosanct. And therefore, we need to constantly remind ourselves that if we are uncomfortable in doing something, we should assert that autonomy. But I think what is more important and what we really failed to do in India is to have a collective response. And I think here, this is an ISOT webinar, and I would say ISOT has a lot of responsibility. I think we should stop lobbing the ball to others on some of these issues. They have their job, they will do their job, but I think our views are important and we should put them forward. If there is a charge that a hospital or a unit is indulging in illegal because it's commercial transplants, I think we should ourselves investigate. And it can work both ways. On one hand, it can build peer pressure. But on the other hand, if there is unfair victimization, and there could be unfair victimization we have a hierarchy in hospitals, and hospital hierarchies work in a certain way. So sometimes it is being driven by the top of the hierarchy, but people at the bottom of the hierarchy are the ones who often are victimized. And transplant coordinators certainly face this also in a big way. So if there is unfair victimization, we should be defending even the victims. I think we need to look at the whole issue of financial neutrality in some detail. And this is a term that comes from the Declaration of Istanbul. And I'm not going to expand on this term, but just to quickly say that it basically proposes that a donor should not either gain money, but also should not lose money in the act of donation. So clearly, the global guidelines talk about compensation for the losses incurred by the donor in the act of donation. That includes the pre-operative, operative, and post-operative period. And I think this is something that we must support, because we want our donors not to be disadvantaged. And therefore, there are two ideas which are coming up globally. One is the idea of financial neutrality and the removal of disincentives for donors, because there are lots of indirect disincentives that donors have. Forget about incentives. So taking leave, losing jobs, and these are areas which I think we need to address. I am ending by saying something provocative. I am not suggesting that it is immediately on the table, but look, if we feel that, and a section of us, it's possible that we have views on this, that what a country like India needs is a way to incentivize donors in a monetary form. Then there are experiments on this front in some parts of the world, but then I think we should propose a very regulated, transparent, paid unrelated donation program, which is monitored well, which doesn't indulge in coercion, social exploitation, exploitation of the vulnerable. It's a very difficult territory. It's not easy, but yes, that is something that in the future, if somebody proposes, could be a legitimate option. But it's very difficult to implement in the terrain that is India. So I will stop here because I promised Noble that I will finish in 6 or 7 minutes. Thank you for the attention, and happy to stay here to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Advocate Sanjay, do you have a question to Sanjay or no? Okay. So we'll finish the talks because otherwise a discussion may go on and go on. I invite Advocate Sandhya George to present her experience in DLAC and what is the legal responsibility of DLAC. Do you have a slide to share, Cynthia?
Well, no, actually, unfortunately.
No problem. You can start speaking.
Yeah. So the thing is, I came. I'm a practicing lawyer, and I came into this entire transplantation scenario, non-living as an external member, and we've been trying to navigate and trying to balance the needs of the donor as well as the recipient. As a lawyer, definitely for me, the law is what is there. I mean, that is what we have to look at. And we found quite a lot of, especially Section 7, as per the rules, that has actually, we feel, I felt that there are lots, we need a lot of, there needs to be fillers, because it's a very vague and it's a very broad guidelines which has been set, and that requires a lot of careful handling. We have to balance the needs of the recipient as well as the donor concerned, and we have to also prevent this commercial exploitation as we look at. And primarily from a legal point of view, when I'm talking about commercial exploitation, it is in the language of courts, it is trafficking, and exploitation can happen. And here both the donor as well as the recipient are in a very vulnerable situation. So how do we balance it? Now, most of the cases from the time I've been coming, and we've recorded almost 200 cases which came up before us. And what we saw when we were actually looking through those data, what we found was that most of the people, there was this economic difference between them, and the economic difference is huge. And when they are coming before us, they are actually creating a link or fabricating a link or creating stories which do not have any kind of connection with each other. And the donor or the recipient's representative is not really clear, and may say something, the donor says something else, the donor's witnesses who come, they say something else. So when we actually bring them all together, when we are actually looking at it, we find lot of contradictions. But they also bring out a lot of statements which may be kind of difficult for them to bring proof, in the sense like, oh, she worked with us as a housemaid, or she is a family friend. Usually housemaids or helpers are made as family friends for the sake of the act, and many of them are women. So these are factors which we really have to look in, and we have to flag these points, because these are very dicey, and the only thing which we can rely on is the questions which we are putting to them. So we need to really bring out certain guidelines which will at least limit or limit the kind of fraudulent activities if possible, because these links or links can easily be manipulated. I mean, you can easily train the donor or you can easily train the recipient in such a way that the authorization committee may not be actually be able to, if they say statements which are very which are corroborating with each other, we will not be able to make out whether there is actual commercial dealing or not. It would be a perfectly taught, people. But till now what has been happening is they feel that any whatever statements they make, the authorization committee will take it and then approvals will be given. Now that is something which really needs to be stopped. Section 7 of the rules has to be, especially the factors especially the points relating to the link, especially the points relating to commercial. What do you mean by altruism? What is meant by, how do you indicate commercial transactions? What is the role of the police in in giving certificates? If suppose it is a transplantation request coming from, if the people are from a different district or a different country, a different state, then on what basis are they coming to this particular state for transplantation? So these are certain questions which we really need to find out. Do we get some kind of authorization or some kind of go ahead or clearance from the from the state from which they are coming from, or on what basis? And if we are looking at relatives or distant relatives, what is the connection? These are certain documents which needs to be really, which we feel we can rely on. These are things which needs to be streamlined. It's more of streamlining, and if we make it more strict, I feel the recipients will really suffer. So how do we balance it? Because as lawyers, we don't think about we just think what is there as letter of what is there in the letter of law, whereas as doctors we have to look at saving a person's life. So there is this conflict, or a conflict may occur. So where do we draw the line? These are certain factors which we really need to look at. So the law is very clear that for if you have to identify whether there is commercial exploitation or not. Now from what I have read of the legislation, there is nothing which says that we have the powers of the civil court to call for documents and things like that. So that kind of also makes this body as only, is it only to verify the documents which are produced before the committee. Now there have been several judgments which have come when people have not got the approvals. Maybe there has been a delay by the police to give the altruism certificate. They've approached that and the police are refusing to give. Then they go to the court, or there is a Delhi High Court has actually prepared has laid down that this is a timeline which you should follow when the DLAC is making inquiries. So the only judgments from what I've seen is those relating to timelines, or those relating to the delay in giving of altruism certificates by the police. So in the Kerala High Court, there has been the general trend has been that they've asked us to ask the DLAC to consider the entire fact situation, whatever, and after inquiry, if we feel that an altruism certificate is required, then they can be sent. Now send back or be in a can be we can ask the police chief, the district police chief, to make an inquiry and send back. That is how the courts have looked into. But the courts have not really said, or have not really categorically said that the DLAC has made a wrong DLAC has made a completely wrong decision. They might say that, okay, why don't you reconsider? But they've not really said, don't do it. So these are certain things which I feel needs to be flagged. And Mr. Nagral has actually mentioned this thing about altruism certificate by the police. Yeah, because Kerala has a practice of getting these altruism certificates from the police, and the idea is to see whether there is a commercial exploitation or these people are, that there is some monetary transactions behind them coming and coming in for offering to give this offering to give their organs. Now, many of the factors which also we've seen is that most of the women who come, they are being brought by their husbands. Sometimes the marriages are not really legal marriages, they're live-in relationships. We know the sanctity of live-in relationships, we know the temporary nature of live-in relationships. So that puts an additional burden on the woman concerned. Sometimes the woman who's a donor is very, very young. So that is like she would be 24, she would be 26. So in those kind of situations, it becomes very difficult. And as per the act, we have to take special consideration while we are deciding issues relating to women. So with that, I end this, my talk, my certain issues which I have felt while being part of the DLAC. And anyone has an issue, question to me, I can definitely answer.
Thank
you.
you, Advocate Sandhya. I think Dr. Anil Kumar, the NOTTO Director, can address the issues which is raised by Sandhya as well as Sanjay Nagral. Over to Dr. Anil Kumar.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, sorry to have joined late. There was a presentation also. I don't know if that is required or not.
Yeah, that will be shared by Saurabh. Yeah. It is being shown. Yeah, it is being shown. You can talk.
Yes.
It will be showing. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, because this authorization committee's responsibilities, authorization committee, as we know that we have state level or district level or hospital level. Hospital level when it is more than 25. Next, please. Transplants in a year. Next. Yeah, so 3 types of cases we basically consider in the authorization committee. One is other than near relative swap cases, and third is the when any foreigner is involved, whether it is near relative or not a near relative. And we all know that no member from the transplant team should be a member of the authorization committee. And next, please. And basically what we look for authorization committee, this is a composition that we all know that how the authorization committee, it is a 7-member body which is there. Next, please. Next. Yeah. So we have this 7-3 rule which gives the procedure to be followed in case of a other than near relative. So basically here what we look for how closely the donor and the recipient have been associated with each other. And as we know, the law allows any unrelated donor also to donate for the reason of affection and attachment. That is under the act itself, that any donor can donate for the reason of affection and attachment towards the recipient, or for any other special reason also. Though special reason has not been clearly defined, what could be the special reason, but it allows. So we have these questions like where, like why, because the common question that we ask, that why the donor wants to donate, what is the, how the donor has been, whether the donor has come out on his own or whether the donor has been approached by somebody, is there a middleman involved, or, and basically we look for association when there is no relation, because it is other than near relative case. So if it is not a near relative, we look for whether there is any other close relationship. And close means it could be second degree relation, a cousin or a maternal uncle or a, not the family member, immediate family member as defined under that, but could be any other close relation that we have in our social fabric, social structure. So whether that is there, if that is also not there, it is a friend, or they are associated with each other for a long time. They are working at the same level. They have a same socio-economic status. Then it becomes really easy for the authorization committee to take a decision. But this in
Dr. Anil, your video is stuck. I think you can switch off video and start talking. Switch off the. I think Dr. Anil is traveling.
Sir, I think sir has lost connection. The internet connection has lost.
I think Saurabh, Dr. Anil is traveling. There is poor connectivity.
Yes, sir. There is poor connectivity.
So, or do we go to the other panelists and come back to and Dr. Anil again?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So, can you just inform Dr. Anil about that? We'll. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm calling him, sir. His number is not pickable. I'm calling him, sir.
Okay. So, shall I go to the other panelists?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm introducing Mr. Binoy Mathew. He's a Deputy Secretary to Government of Kerala, who's a AO of KSOTTO. He'll be talking about how a DLAC documentation process, that is how, what all content should be there when you reject an application or accept an application. Over to Mr. Binoy. You can share the slide.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Respected moderator, Dr. Noble sir, respected NOTTO Director, Dr. Anil Kumar sir, other co-panelists, and all attendees. I have a nice evening today. First of all, let me thank you, KSOTTO, for giving me an opportunity to be having me here. I have been asked to talk about the procedure to be followed in drafting a speaking order on the proceedings of DLAC in rejecting or accepting the joint petition of a donor and a recipient. So I have prepared a presentation. Just have I define the presentation, and we shall continue our discussion based on that presentation.
You can share the presentation.
Okay, basically the district level authorization committee derives its authority from the Thought Act, Section 9 of Thought Act. In Section 9, subsection 3, it provides the power to the committee to oversee and approve the organ transplant procedures involving donors and recipients who are not near relatives. And subsection 5 of Section 9 of the same Act gives powers to the authority to approve such a request for organ donation, and subsection 6 of Section 9 gives powers to the committee to reject application based on certain concrete reasons which were recorded in writing. So this is the total provisions for empowering DLACs. Now the rule made in 2014, rule number 23, provides the modus of the procedures of DLAC. In that rule 23 describes the how the DLAC committee should be conduct its business upon the applications of donor and donor recipient pair. The very important point on or what are given in that particular rule will be discussed later. Before that, let me show a diagram. It is clearly placing the position of Authorization Committee in the entire system of organ transplantation network. Actually, Authorization Committee is placed in a particular area where a donation of unrelated relation between unrelated donor and recipients only due to affection or attachment or special reason. And this is for unrelated pairs. And for foreign nationals, if they are related, then also their case must be considered by the DLAC. So this is the placement of DLAC in our system. Now come back to Rule 23. In that rule, very importantly, the heart and soul. We can say that the heart and soul of that rule is expressed in three specific terms. First one is AC should state in writing its reason for rejecting or approving the application of the proposed living donor in prescribed Form 18. So that term is state in writing. That means the reason for accepting or rejecting must be expressed as a particular document having full of reasoning for the documents presented, the statements given by the pairs, and other inquiry reports based on the application. So the communication or the proceedings must be a written one, and it must contain all the relevant materials. And another term important is the AC shall expedite. Expedite means the AC should not take much time to dispose of the cases. That means the time limit is prescribed there. Honorable Delhi High Court also given a particular time frame for disposing of our cases. And another important term, which we must see very particularly, is that the AC must use its discretion judiciously and pragmatically. This term gives a wide variety of a wide range of deep power to go into the details of the proposal. Now, a recent judgment of Honorable High Court of Kerala states that the district level authorization committee should issue a speaking order while disposing the cases. And the very important 2-3 points mentioned in the order of the Honorable Court is that there must be the appellate authority can only consider the materials available from the original authority. First thing it is that. Second thing is there must be a speaking order. And we know that these are the two important points mentioned in the High Court order. And we know that whenever a state government or a High Court consider an appeal petition against the decision of a DLAC, the appeal court or the state government exercises their appellate jurisdiction. See, the appellate jurisdiction means they are not taking the case as a fresh one. They are actually dealing with the appeal. The appellate jurisdiction means they will always look into the case with a particular angle. That means that they will only a curative consideration will be there. Will only be there because when the original authority has already disposed the case, the appeal came to the higher court or state government for only to see whether any procedural lapse or something is happened wrong in the procedure. Like, is there any lack of quorum in the DLAC meeting, or the parties were not being heard, or failed to examine the documents produced by the parties, or whether it is exceeded its jurisdiction. such things. These are all technical issues. So another thing is the appellate authority will check what is the material disposed by the lower court or the lower authority. Here, the DLAC has to keep a record of the proceedings of DLAC. Then only the appellate authority can make a comment or make a decision upon it. In many cases, DLAC expresses their decision in 1 or 2 sentences only. Especially when the case is a case of rejection, it must be clearly written with all cases, all documents considered, all statements considered, and all other relevant laws and procedures. Then only the High Court or the appellate authority can consider the case afresh. So there is a limitation, and that is the point where which speaking order is necessary in DLAC. Then let us consider what is the philosophical and legal basis of requirement for a speaking order. Because we know that these are the important points, because this is the age of right to information. So the parties has the right to know what is actually happening in DLAC and what are the cases, what are the documents they considered, how they deal with the documents, how they assess the genuinity of the case, etc. So right to information is there, right to know is very important. So the DLAC must communicate with proper details, what they considered, what is the rationale of rejecting or accepting the proposal. So another thing is the transparency, because it's a in-camera procedure. So all the people concerned or the stakeholders in other areas also want to know how these procedures are going. So there's an issue of transparency. The another thing is whenever a party, a pair, a donor recipient pair is approaching an authority, they have the right to be heard. The authority must hear the grievances or the contentions of the donor recipient pair. So they have the right to be heard. Another thing is to establish the fairness of the procedure, we must record it properly. Another thing is accountability. We have to, the higher authority or appellate authority, appellate court need to be revised or to check what is happening in the DLAC. So it must be properly documented. Then only a higher authority or after an audit can be done based on certain cases or other issues. So this is the basis of all the things. That is, justice should not only be done, but must also be seen to be done. That is the legal maxim behind issuing a speaking order on the proceedings of DLAC. Now let us see what are the very important points, very few points on how to produce, how to draft proceedings in a speaking manner. So very important thing is the content. The content must be clear and precise, and it must convey exact message what the DLAC has decided to convey. So the language must be clear and precise. As far as possible, regional language can be used, but here it includes certain litigations and appeals, etc. We need to express or disseminate the decision in English. However, conveying the decision of DLAC in regional language can also be considered, because the applicants are may not be well educated to understand the legal terms and all. So the language must be very clear, and as far as possible avoid legal jargons and unnecessary complicated technical terms in the proceedings. Follow a logical structure, how the decision is arrived at, how the committee arrived at a particular decision. The logic and rationale behind the proceedings must be expressed clearly in a logical order. So this is what is important for content. Another thing is, when we drafting a proceedings, first of all, we introduce at the beginning of the proceedings itself, we should state certain important points. That means the jurisdiction of the DLAC. That means the thought act and relevant rules provides authority to DLAC to dispose of these cases. So that is the authority of DLAC, and that must be mentioned. And who are the parties involved, their names, address, etc. must be mentioned. And what are the priors must be mentioned in the introductory part itself. Another is statement of facts. Statement of facts means what is the brief expression of the contents or the applications of the donor recipient pair. So what are the facts they mentioned in their application? What are the documents they produced there? All these things must be chronologically referred in the proceedings. And if there are some superfluous documents and irrelevant documents may also be produced, that must be clearly mentioned in the order. And the evidence they have submitted must be specifically referred in the order. Another thing is, you must address the issue. That is, what is the issue raised by the applicants must be clearly stated in the order. In this case, we have always a general terms are there, general requests are there. Almost same applications are being coming upon. So the issue must be same in almost all cases. So, however, that issue must be stated in the order. Another thing is the analysis and reasoning, because many facts, many statements, many evidences, many records are collected. So, through all these things, we must develop a reasoning to accept or reject and apply the law of the position of the legal position, and cite the laws and rules and precedents for rejecting or accepting, and clearly mention the reasoning behind this. So this is what is analysis and reasoning. And finally, there is a conclusion must be there. That means in each case, in every document or every statements, the findings or the decision of the committee must be clearly mentioned. And the final orders of the DLAC also must be clearly mentioned. And the operative part, or what the decision suggests, whether to go for an surgery or whether it is rejected. That fact must be clearly mentioned in the end part of the proceedings. Finally, one more thing must be there. The legal rights and remedies must also be mentioned there, because the applicants have some legal remedies and they have some legal rights also. So at the end of the proceedings, the DLAC must mention what is the scope for appeal and what are the relevant position of for preferring an appeal. So under Thought Act, we know that under Rule 33(1), there is a scope for appeal, and clearly mentioned that who is the appellate authority. As per the Act, not the court, the state government or the central government, as the case may be, is the appellate authority. So the people can go directly to the government, need not to go to court with having a huge expense by spending huge money. They can directly approach the government, and the government will dispose the case within a very small time. So they can approach government. So that must be mentioned in the order. And the time limit prescribed by the Act also must be mentioned in the proceedings. So this is the structure of proceedings, in a general structure of a speaking proceedings, a speaking order by that is expected from a DLAC. So whenever proceedings contains all these factors, all these materials are clearly mentioned, the appellate authority can take a decision. And most often, appellate authority cannot dismiss if we are construct our arguments in a logical and evidence-based manner. No appellate authority can dismiss our cases. So one more thing, when DLACs are disposing of cases, various there must be a uniform method of disposing cases, because the yardstick must be same in every DLACs. So when the yardsticks are different, there will be a doubt and there will be mistrust among the applicants and general public about the actions of DLACs. So this is an example for a recent example for of a DLAC proceedings. You see, it gives only one sentence or one or two sentences about the reason for rejection. And this must be elaborated. There must be a speaking order, and this is not sufficient, for no appellate authority or no court can consider this as a material for disposing an appeal. So there must be some content, some idea, some logic, etc. there. So thank you for patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Binoy. It was very explicit and very clear on how a DLAC proceedings to be dealt with. Saurabh, do we have any audience questions? So the panelists, whether Anil Kumar sir is continuing his presentation? It's already 7 o'clock. Saurabh? Saurabh?
Yes, sir. Sir.
Any question from the audience in the text box? Or?
Sir, there was no question in the audience, sir.
Okay.
No
So whether
question.
Anil Kumar sir is continuing with the
Yes,
presentation?
Sir is continuing, sir. I am just
Yeah.
adding sir as panelist.
Okay, right.
I am adding sir as panelist, sir.
Okay, right.
Ji, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Anil, you can continue with your presentation.
So, Dr. Saurabh, would you like to display? Can you display the presentation?
Yes, sir. It's been displayed, sir. I am displaying, sir.
So, yeah, we can go to the slides. Sorry, actually, I was coming from the Nirman Bhavan, so there was an underpass, and it got disconnected.
Okay, no problem. No, we are all here. Okay.
Yeah. So, next, please. Yeah. So we have a question. Next, you please go to the. Yeah, I had covered all this. Yeah, this I had covered. Yeah, next. Yeah, so this is already there in the the rules that how we have to proceed for examining these cases and what all we have to look for. Basically, we have to look for the reasons for donation. We have to look for how the donor, whether there is a middleman or not involved in between, that the donor has come on its own or donor has been approached by someone for donation. Then next, whether donor is having some drug addiction or some kind of a dependency on something, or then financial disparity is not a absolute contraindication for donation. Disparities would be there, but disparity is the reason for because of the disparity, this person who is there is coming forward, or like for any financial incentive is coming forward for donation. That we have to examine. But financial disparity as such is not the absolute contraindication, because many times we find in the reasons that there is a financial disparity, so the donation has not been allowed. So that is not the correct way of doing it. And then we have to interview a near relative of the donor, whether the near relative is well aware of the intention of his donation, and if there are any strong disagreement, and the reasons, they should be taken note of. And but again, as the speakers have pointed out, we have to give detailed speaking order of rejecting or accepting a case which is coming forward for donation. So that is one thing. And usually, because I saw one question from Dr. Nagral that that there is a whether the surgeon can reject even if the authorization committee has accepted. So that is well, the answer to this, if the particular surgeon has requested, has forwarded the case for consideration of the authorization committee, because usually what I've observed that it is the transplanting surgeon, they are forwarding these cases to the, particularly in Delhi, what I have observed that transplanting surgeons are forwarding these cases to the authorization committee for their consideration. So if they have forwarded, so we presume that they have taken due care of the preliminary, examination, that they are thinking that it is not a commercial dealing type of a case, which they are forwarding. So then still, like I was just now, this from Nirman one, when I was coming out, this was also a case which had come from at appeal level, and there was this distant relative, she was a niece who was coming forward for donation. Her husband was agreeing, the relationship was clearly established, there was a long term association also. In such, when there is, near relation, or well, if it is a near relation, then it becomes easy. But if it is not a near relation, we look for association, as I was pointing out earlier also, that we have to look for how closely and for how long they have been associated with each other. Suppose the donor and recipient working in a same office at the same level, there could be affection and attachment between them. Even nowadays, we accept even if they are associated on a WhatsApp group for some duration, and for a significant, suppose say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they are influenced, which is each, they are on a particular WhatsApp group, they are sharing the ideas over there. So there could be affection and attachment. So we have to look for association between the donor and recipient, and not to be always doubtful about the, sometimes I find that most of these authorization committee, they become like investigating agencies. They collect so many documents from these, donor and recipients, then it becomes a harassment for the, even the genuine, the particularly the genuine cases. So we also recommend that e-Aadhaar is now very easy to verify. That should be implemented. That should be, every authorization committee should implement Aadhaar authentication wherever it is feasible. Like somebody is having a Aadhaar iCard, easily one can go to the Aadhaar website, and if the mobile is there, the OTP will come, and once you enter the OTP, you can see the Aadhaar of the person. So this forgery of Aadhaar is now cannot take place, so that can be easily checked. Next slide, Saurabh. Next slide. Yeah, decision, we have said the detailed reasons. The form 18 is there for giving the decision, and again, decision has to be very detailed, giving the detailed reason. Next, please. Again, the website, the decision has to be uploaded on the website of the hospital within 24 hours. We had issued a order in 2020, like executive letter to all the states, wherein we said that after the documentation has been completed, the authorization committee must decide the case within 7 days, and similarly the 7 days for the appellate authority, because there has been many instances of lot of harassment of donor and recipient because of the delayed decisions by the authorization committee. Next, please. Next. We even there was a court judgment in Amar Singh Bhatia. They have directed us. Now we have defined timelines for the functioning of the authorization committee for each of the step, and that timelines have been communicated to all the states. And this letter from the secretary giving the timelines for every step is now uploaded on our website, NOTTO website, that can be seen easily over there. Next, please. Next. Appeal committee is also there. So appeal committee, like just previous slide.
Yeah, this is the appeal committee that we have at the central government level. Appeal committee, next slide. Yeah. Here, appeal committee, previous slide, previous. Yeah, just to inform that what are the various members of the appellate committee. In the appellate committee, we have a forensic expert, we have a clinical psychologist, we have a immunogenetic expert, where they do the DNA matching, and if it is there, that has to be verified. Then we have a representative of the Department of Legal Affairs. We have a representative director NOTTO in the appeal committee, and we have then subject wise. It is a kidney case. Then we have HOD, nephrology, or a representative from one of the central government hospital, like particular. Yeah, definitely that is there, that they should not be part of the transplant team. And a one urology expert. Similarly, in liver, we have a physician and a surgeon. So this is the appeal, and this appeal committee is headed by a joint secretary level officer, which is nominated by the central government, and so that is how this appeal committee functions at the central government level. So next, please. So my main this thing is that when we don't have to be too investigative. We have to use particularly the experienced authorization committee. They are able to make out easily that this is a case which is not genuine, and which is a genuine case of transplant. We should not be harassing genuine cases of transplantation. So that is my whole message at this stage.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. It was very clear and
Yeah.
laying out the responsibility of DLAC. Saurabh, can we close the proceedings, or we would like to have some discussion? It's already 7 o'clock. Panelists, do you have any point of discussion with Dr. Anil Kumar, or a lawyer is here? You want to clarify anything?
Actually, thank you so much, Mr. Anil Kumar and Mr. Binoy. The guidelines, actually, the pointers which have been placed are very important. I feel especially Mr. Binoy, when he made those points as to how those rejection orders or appeal orders should be made, I think that's very important. Also, I'm just wondering, should we give these orders for approvals? Because then we are looking at 2 to 3 pages, or maybe at least minimum 1 page for each order, where we are actually stating why we are giving this approval or why we are not giving the approval. So that is something which is important, and which I just want a clarification on. And secondly, sir, yes, I agree, Mr. Anil Kumar, I agree when you say that after going through a lot of cases, we find out what is genuine and what is not genuine. But this is all all the decisions which you are making are also very subjective. It's basically how we are feeling that this is genuine and this is not genuine. So I feel a streamlining should be done, because subjective needs to be our subjective discretion has to be very clearly streamlined with pointers. That kind of detailed explanation should be given to the authorization committees, is what we feel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anil, Dr. Bina.
Yeah, actually, I just want to play one small video.
You can. Yeah.
So just to share the screen.
Saurabh, video to be shared.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm playing.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Dr. Saurabh, you have.
Yeah. Himanshu ji. Yeah. Thank you.
You can't open.
Yes, sir.
You can't.
Well, I was just asking to assist for.
Yes, Saurabh, sir.
Actually, I was asking to assist for video. Sir wants to play a video.
Sir, the video I don't have. You have the video with you, sir.
No, we are sharing from here.
Please share. No problem in sharing.
अब इसको शेयर करो। Yeah. Yeah. So, like, this is a lady. Can you see the video?
Yes, sir. We can see the video, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a lady who is the recipient, and she is 72-year-old, a basically requiring a liver transplant. She is from a very affluent class, and her son is a doctor, a renowned doctor in Dubai, and basically, like, I'm just trying to show how the people try to, and these cases, like, this is the donor who is a 19-year-old, a 19-year-old person. And what is the relation between them? This is the wife of the friend of the grandfather of this person. Well, this donor, wife of the friend of grandfather of the donor. So this 19-year-old boy is the donor, and so, and if you look at the father of this person, this is the father of this boy, he was also very much willing. So basically, what I want to say, some of these cases we can easily make out, like when they are either, feeling socially coerced to donate, you know, uh, and so this is the way, like, basically we have so many videos with us, because we have we deal with at the appeal level, and we decide in very detailed orders we give that how the so, because why a 19-year-old boy who is just finished 12th class, his family is very much willing. Basically they are, sort of a the other family is very affluent class. They are feeling that even if they give, they do some kind of a obligation for this affluent class family, they would be perhaps getting some benefit in future. But though there was no we could not find any immediate commercial dealing or anything like that. But in this case, we can always find, judge as a committee members that this case may not be allowed, because there is a 72-year-old lady who is requiring a transplant, and not and why we should be, agreeing for such a donation. So we'll I can show another video also if you want, just to uh, give you another idea.
Yeah, you can go ahead on that.
Yeah. Open. उसी side है. Yes.
Meanwhile, Dr. Nagral has to raise a point. Nagral.
I just, whilst he shows
Yeah, just
is a fairly common experience. I don't know how Authorization Committee
this is
getting on.
another donor,
Speak later.
another recipient. Like very rich son, and I'll just show the donor. This donor is the wife of a auto rickshaw driver who used to, ferry this old lady in Delhi from one place to another place. So she has come forward to donate, no relation. And this auto rickshaw driver was also, staying in their property as a caretaker. So, and this is the, I'll just show you the auto rickshaw driver also. This is the husband of the donor. So, I think one can easily make out the, so this is the way. So, just to show how, some of the cases are very clear. We cannot allow them. when such kind of, even if they have been obliged through some, then they are feeling to pay back, because once they have been obliged by this particular family. So, but they are not at all aware of the nature and consequences. They will not be able to follow up with the nephrologist if they are giving kidney, or they will not be able to follow up with a hepatologist. There is no insurance available for these donors, and so all those, because once the donation has been done. Dr. Nagral wants to speak here.
No, I just want to say that it was our experience, and I'm sure all of you have that experience, that there are families where the close family members may be matching, may be young, but they propose somebody who's a distant relative or unrelated. Uh, and they will often say that our family members are busy, somebody is working abroad. How do authorization committees look at this? Any
Yeah, basically that is because usually when they have been able to find a donor from outside, so their family members back out, and sometimes they even speak very plainly, like what we have observed, particularly when the families from a Haryana, they say ki we are spending money, we are able to, some of them speak very plainly, ki we will spend money but we will not give donation. So even the son, or they, plainly they speak, they will refuse in plain words ki we will not, my wife will not allow me. So we will allow, we will spend money but we will not donate. So that kind of a attitude is there. So that is there. It becomes difficult, but as an authorization committee, we definitely see those cases, and matlab, it's sometimes it becomes very difficult. The case that we dealt today also, it took us 3 hours to decide, and we have a psychologist, we have a legal expert, we have no, but it continuously for 3 hours we were debating after interviewing all these three people. uh, so
Yeah. So, I mean, Dr. Kumar, I mean, there are many of my colleagues here, and I'm not sure why they're not speaking up. But I think, why are such cases referred at all? I think that is what we also need to reflect on.
Yeah,
What is
exactly.
happening at the hospital level? Why are they referring such cases? They are intelligent enough and competent enough to know what is happening. So, I think that's a big challenge.
yeah,
That exactly is the challenge, sir, because very often, even sometimes medical, I'm not an expert, but there are certain medical records which could be medical data which could be very borderline cases, but still approval has been given and sent to us, and then the doctors are actually looking at it and saying, why was this approval, or why was this sent? Or sometimes just looking at that person, we feel key that person is underweight and should not be, may not really, may be a borderline case. So these are aspects which definitely needs to be looked at.
Dr. Anil, I also would like to raise that issue because we recently had two 17-year-old kids or siblings, parents, liver failure. One is advanced malignancy. But why do the liver surgeon or refer this case, first of all? Why they give an option for this minor girl to donate organ for his father with hepatic mets and all? So this is actually puzzling. What should DLAC do more than what a surgeon on his ethical principles decide on? How can we go about in that case, Dr. Anil? We have actually given two permissions for less than 18-year-old for liver based on the High Court direction.
Well, Noble, if I can butt in, I mean, in fact, that case,
Sure.
we looked at it, and I think there, perhaps as a surgeon, if you have somebody's at the end of 17 years, there is some feeling that this is a young fit person, and I can see where the surgeon comes from actually. But what I'm referring to is cases which Dr. Kumar showed, or where there's a completely very, very tenuous connection between the donor recipient where, so I think this is what I was trying to point out in my brief talk, that I think the hospitals themselves and ISOT itself and its members should be looking at, why are they referring such cases? What is their view? Why are they transferring the burden on the authorization committee?
Correct. Okay, thank you all. I think we have crossed the time. The time allotted by ISOT was 45 minutes. We have finished around 70. And this recording is available on YouTube. So everyone who is interested to see about the DLAC actions and how to go about, you can view this in ISOT EduConnect YouTube channel. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you, ISOT Secretary Manish, and all the panelists for your time and for your explicitly stated talks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.